Hello, this is Krista Gunter, and I will be covering the Romantic period, which took place from 1820 to 1850. A transitional period occurred from 1820 to 1825 for women's costume that went from the Empire style to the new Romantic style. A new location for the waistline began gradually moving downward from just under the bust to several inches above the anatomical location of the waist. Along with the change in the waistline placement, sleeves also started developing larger and would continue to grow, as well as gored skirts, which were widening and becoming shorter. With the return of the waist, women had to wear stays. They wore them tightly laced to make the waist look narrow and pinched so that it could balance the wide skirts and the wide shoulder line. Stays were made from cloth layers that had whalebones inserted in channels. Corsets were intended to emphasize the natural curves rather than create the false silhouette. Little gussets at the hips allowed for roundness rather than trying to flatten the line. Small shoulder straps were made detachable, and the wearer could wear the stays with more revealing necklines. Over the stays, women would wear a chemise and multiple layers of petticoats at times. As the skirt expanded, the robust linen or cotton petticoats would increase in number. They supported the crisp, firm silk or woolen materials. Bustles, which were small down or cotton-filled pads that tied on around the waist at the back, would hold out the skirts in the back. A major source of fashion information at the time was women's magazines. Periodicals included hand-colored prints showing the latest styles together with descriptions. In these magazines, dresses were frequently identified according to the time of day or activity for which they were intended. There were things such as morning dresses, day dress, walking, or promenade dress. Also, carriage dress, dinner dress, evening dress, or ball dress. There were a variety of sleeve styles during the Romantic era, and some of them include the Marie sleeve, which was full to the wrist but tied in an interval with ribbons or bands. Also, the demi-gigot, which was full from shoulder to elbow, then fitted from elbow to wrist, often with an extension over the wrist. There was the gigot, or also called leg of mutton sleeves. It was full at the shoulder, gradually decreasing in size to the wrist where they ended in a fitted cuff. Then there was the imbecile, or also noted as idiot sleeves, that were extremely full from shoulder to wrist where they gathered into a fitted cuff. Another ensemble of the time was the police robe, which was an adaptation of the pelisse typically worn outdoors. It was a sort of coat dress that closed down the front with buttons, ribbon ties, or sometimes hidden hooks and eyes. In the 1820s, necklines tended to be square, round, or elliptical, but in the late 1820s and 1830s, they were more likely to be off the shoulder. Accessory garments for dresses at this time included fillers, which were also known as chemises or tuckers, which raised the necklines of daytime dresses. They were separated from the dress and could be worn with different bodices. There were also pelerines, which were wide cape-like collars that extended over the shoulders and down across the bosom. There was also a variant of the pelerine known as the fichu pelerine, which had two wide panels, or also called lappets, that extended down in front of the dress and passed under the belts. Other popular accessories were the santon, which was a silk cravat worn over a ruff, and the canezou. Between 1836 and 1850, the silhouette of dresses gradually became more subdued. One change that occurred was the shape of sleeves. The sleeves started becoming deflated more. Although the fullness in the sleeves did not entirely disappear, they did move lower on the arm until around 1840, when sleeves became more narrow and closely fitted. And at the same time, skirts were becoming longer again, and bodices that generally ended at the waist were likely to come to a point at the front and to close with hooks, buttons, or laces down the front or back. And although dresses were predominantly one piece, there were also some two-piece jacket and skirt styles. Some of them buttoned in the front, and some of them had short basques, which was an extension of the bodice below the waist. One popular style was the gilet corsage, which was an imitation of the man's waistcoat. During the Romantic era, women generally parted their hair center front. In the early 1820s, the hair was worn in tight curls, framing the forehead and temples, and the back might have been pulled into a knot, a bun, or ringlets worn for the evening time. Also, elaborate loops or plaits of false hair might have been added in, and another popular hairstyle was the a la chinoise. Other items worn for headdress would have been a turban, hats that might have been adorned with feathers, also bonnets, and bonnets with veils over them. Outdoor garments would have been a mantle or shawl mantle, pelerine mantle, a burnous, a palto, and a pardessus. Footwear would have consisted of stockings that were knitted or of cotton or silk or wool. For evenings of the 1830s and 40s, black silk stockings were fashionable, and the most shoes were of a slipper type. Toes became somewhat square after the late 1820s. Also common accessories were a woman's chatelaine, which was an ornamental cluster of small tools worn hanging from the waist, a parasol, women's gloves, both fingerless and short kid type gloves, small beaded handbags, cravats, which were wraps around the neck and tied in the front with a bow. For the 1820s to 1840s, men's clothing had become more subdued in color and ornamentation. Garments hadn't changed majorly at the time. Some men used corsets and padding to achieve fashionable silhouettes. Shirts were cut with deep collars and long enough to fold over a cravat or neckcloth wrapped around the neck. Daytime shirts had tucked insets at the front. For evening shirts were frilled. Sleeves were cuffed, closing with buttons or studs. With these shirts, men either wore socks, wide, often black-shaped neck pieces fastening at the back, or cravats. Coats, waistcoat, and trousers were the components of a suit. Tailcoats and frock coats were the most common types of coats. Paisley patterned fabrics were widely used in the 19th century, and garments were made from them, ranging from paisley shawls to men's dressing gowns.